We're live. We are live right now. We are recording Monday night at 9:30 Eastern Time, March 31st. Chase, you basically did it. I was on for like 7 minutes, if we're being honest. You did the live reaction after the Alabama game. It feels like that was 400 years ago. That was only just a few days ago. BYU falls apart in the Sweet 16, gives up a bajillion three-pointers to Alabama, gives up 113 points to that Alabama team. I know we did the live reaction a little bit. We didn't put it on the YouTube or podcast form or anything. How are you feeling a few days out after BYU falls apart in the Sweet 16?
I haven't really thought too much even about that Bama game. I've just really been reflecting on the season, and I just feel nothing but appreciation, respect, and a lot of pride in those guys, and a bunch of very fond memories. Obviously, that story was Bama going and playing Duke and coming back down to earth. And obviously, I'm watching all those games. But I didn't really think too much about BYU. I thought at the end of the day, they ran into a really good team playing at their absolute best. And so that game is that game. But I can't help but feel anything but just awe for this season, man. It was so fun. They accomplished so much. Seeing the growth from so up close, you and I were blessed to, be credentialed, be there in the building every home game, even travel some places. It was really a season to remember, one that I'll never forget, and one that has set this foundation for BYU basketball for what I think is many, many years to come.
That's the key there. This season set the foundation for the future, and it even takes the pressure off even next season a little bit, which if you ask anybody in the building, next season – you see what movements they're making. You see how much money they're putting up for this roster next season. You see who's coming in the building. Look, next year, they saw what they could do this year with this roster, making the Sweet 16 in year one. I really feel like next year they're feeling, hey, it's April or bust. We better be playing in Indianapolis, or we're not happy with that season, to be honest. That's the trajectory BYU is on, and setting the foundation for this year, making the Sweet 16, beating top dogs, demolishing a blue blood like Kansas, and just really making your presence known and really showing to the country, BYU fans especially, that they have their coach. Kevin Young is the guy going forward. They have the coaching staff. They have everything in place to become one of the premier programs in college basketball. And that is the key. That is the thing. Like, that's what I've thought about, too, in these last few days about BYU hoops is, look, Alabama, it happened. And we talked a little bit about it on the live show. Like, look, could BYU have defended in a different way? And Kevin Young and his coaching staff would be the first ones to tell you, yeah, we probably should have gone out in a different way, whatever. But, look, Alabama hit 25 threes in that game. No one's winning that ball game when you shoot that many threes. And it's kind of, like I said on the live show, it's kind of bittersweet because there's no great way to lose, but BYU didn't lose that game, in my opinion. Alabama won it, like I said. And I just think it's nothing but positives going into this offseason.
Yeah, the season as a whole is an absolute win. And I don't think it can be overstated how important it was to go out this way. There's an alternative universe, Carter, where things don't get figured out in January. This BYU team misses the tournament, or even they sneak in, they lose in Dayton, they lose in the first round or something like that, and we're just talking about next year. They always had the number one recruit. They had this money coming in. They were going to be a very desirable transfer location, but it's what they did on the court that meant the most this season. To set up for all the success, you needed to show that even without everything coming in, I mean, you still had great players on the court. You can figure it out. Kevin Young and this coaching staff is a good coaching staff. They can develop players who have been there for 3, 4, some even 5 years to stick around the program and go out on an absolute high in one of the second best or third best season in BYU basketball history. That I feel like really needed to happen. Otherwise, we'd be just sitting here talking about next season. Can they turn things around? Well, it could be completely different. Now it's just how much better can they get? And what are they going to do when they bring in these guys and this type of talent? How are they going to build around a player like AJ Devonsta, who's going to be coming back from this squad who did so well? So this season, I really couldn't have gone better. Obviously, there's a couple more games they could have won there at the end of the season, but this was the most we could have possibly asked for. I mean, people were clamoring for a win in the tournament. You got 2. and you were the talk of the town between Richie Saunders, between Kevin Young, and the story of BYU turning it around in the Big 12. You finished top 4 in the conference. I didn't see this season turning out much better than this, Karter, unless they pull off a win against Bama. Like this was the best of the best.
Yeah, and look, I don't think in this region especially, I didn't think the Final Four was a real possibility unless Duke just absolutely collapsed. Because let's say BYU did win this Bama game, I just don't think there was a world BYU is beating Duke.
I don't think there's a world where Alabama's beating Duke, to be honest, unless they shot the exact same way they did against BYU. That's just how good Duke is, and I don't want to put a cap on this BYU team. I think they're good enough to have beaten Bama if they caught Bama on a normal night. But they didn't, and at the end of the day, that's March. That happens, man. Guys get hot. This is why it's called madness. Of course, it was a 2 seed, and Bama's already really good. So,
yeah, I see online people are making a big deal about Bama came back down to earth and they stunk against Duke and whatnot. It's like, look, it's apples to oranges there. You're comparing this to this Duke team where their smallest players 6'6", and they have 7-8 dudes who are going to be playing in the NBA in the next year or two. So, let's pump the brakes there a little bit. Also, I will say it did bother me watching the game. I was watching with the Field of 68 founder Rob Doster sit next to me. I mean, we were both dumbfounded that they were going under on screens early, and Kevin Young talked about it in the press conference that they wanted to keep him out of the paint because they score so many points in the paint. But my goodness, that's Mark Sears and Aiden Holloway. That's why they got feeling early, and once they got in that mode, the train's left the station. You can't stop the train at that point once they're feeling that way, and then they're just going to hit every shot once they get confident in a game.
Yeah, and even Nate Oates said in his post-game presser, he's like, I saw them going under screens. We thought they might do it. And so I told Holloway and Sears, this is your night. This is when you just need to let it fly. And credit to Bama, their scouting benefited in a big way. And they also shot – they had the best shooting performance in the history of this tournament, Karter. I don't think there's any other way to put it. That was the best shooting performance of any team ever in college basketball in those games, that tournament. So – can't be mad, man. Can't be mad. Nothing but good things to say about this team.
So in Newark, someone on the Alabama staff was saying that they were saying, they were like, yeah, look, this win was awesome. The way we did it was unbelievable. This was sick. And this was right after the game in the Sweet 16. But they were like, man, the best part about this one was doing it in front of AJ. And I was sitting there dying laughing. There might have been a little something extra there with AJ sitting in the crowd.
Yeah, BYU beat Bama in the offseason, but Bama definitely got their get back in the tournament. That's for dang sure.
Yeah, 100%. But yeah, once again, great season. And I talked about it a little bit on the live show for people that weren't able to tune in. But dude, being in that locker room after, oh man, you could just feel on most of the dudes. Some dudes were fine, whatever. But most of these guys, man, you could see how much it affected them, and it just wrecked them afterwards. And everybody had red, puffy eyes, and you just felt bad. You just felt so sad for these dudes. Man, it's really over. This group is changing so much going into next year. It's not going to look very similar to this season, to be honest. A lot of new pieces coming in and out of this program, and so eventually it does have to end, but man, these dudes were it really affected them after, especially talking to them off camera and stuff. It was rough.
Yeah, I could tell from some of the videos, but obviously you were there in the middle of it. I think that just shows how much this team actually cared about each other, and that's what made it so fun to watch them and their turnaround. I think they legitimately are friends, and I think even if some guys leave, like Elijah Crawford's in the portal, we'll talk about all that stuff later, but a guy like him, you could just tell he loved his time here and he loved those guys and wanted to win. All those guys, I think they really cared about each other. And Kevin Young said after, and again, you were there obviously, but mentioned how this is one of his favorite seasons coaching ever. And it's just a special bond for these college guys. It's what makes us watch, right? Is their passion for the game. And man, BYU, they had it. And that was the turning point, right? Was how much they decided to care and that they were going to make things work, and they did, and it's tough to go out that way. But again, I just can't talk about how fun the season was, man. It was such a blast. There's so many moments in games I'll remember, from Richie Saunders knocking down clutch free throws at Arizona to double overtime Iowa State, even that Wisconsin game, holding off Tanji there at the very end, even though we all thought we were going to die from a heart attack. So many great memories for this team, and just an incredible year for BYU as a whole.
Oh, I mean, like, you think about this season for BYU, the amount of big-time games and big-time moments you'll remember forever about BYU basketball, there was more in just this one season there probably was in the last decade of BYU hoops.
Yeah, I mean, they just it helps when you're playing Iowa State and then Arizona and then Kansas. Like they're playing these top dogs and then they beat them. They went and beat them like multiple times. That's what was so special. And like we were saying a little earlier, it's really only the beginning. I mean, if you thought all the expectations for BYU this year, there was a lot of good stuff going in the offseason. Then it ebbed and flowed throughout the season. This offseason is going to be like nothing else. And since they had that Sweet 16 run and showed that they're capable, even before they land their best recruiting class that the school's ever seen, is going to make this offseason and the expectations and the momentum of the program, recruiting, money, coaching, even players, right? You just build and feed off of that. And you saw that all just building together at the perfect time of the year, right? In early March, in late February, you could see this team, they really did figure something out. And even on bad shooting nights, they figured out how to win. On great shooting nights, they went out and dominated, right? They fixed defense as they went throughout the season. And I don't want to say this wrong, but I think they won, Carter, 13 of their last 15 games.
That sounds about right.
Which is, even if you don't win the last game, like that Bama game was tough and the Houston one, of course, they kind of have BYU's number, but that is an amazing way to end a season going to Sweet 16 and in the Big 12. I mean, just about as good as it gets.
Yeah, 1,000%. And yeah, I really don't think I have much more to add to that, to be honest. And we can get into off-season stuff here in a little bit. Last thing I did want to mention, being in Newark, Chase. I don't want to sound sour grapes or anything, because it was maybe the coolest weekend of my life being there, getting to cover up close courtside at a BYU Sweet 16 game, getting to talk to these guys after and being there. Unbelievable. Like, shout out to Rob Doster, shout out Field of 68 for letting me come along and everything. It was unbelievable. But man, Newark stinks, dude. Like, I was staying in New York City and whatnot, and then I'd train out to Newark. Man, Newark at night is not the place you want to be, man.
Wait, our guy Nolan Mickelson might be a little offended by that. He did live in Jersey for 4.5 years, Carter.
I think Nolan would agree with me that Newark is the last place you want to be at 2:30 in the morning waiting for an Uber.
Yeah, I think there's about like 130 other venues that would have been better to go watch BYU play a basketball game.
Could have just gone across the bridge and just all of a sudden playing at the Garden. It would have been so much better. But that game, imagine that game was at the Garden. Whew.
Oh, man. I mean, at the end of the day, it is what it is.
Yeah.
I don't ever want to go back to Jersey. I mean, you and I were there together.
Yeah.
And yeah,
especially in the summer, that was
in my life. My entire life.
Yeah, especially in the summer, and you're just packed in on a hot train. It just smells like garbage on the train too. And you're just like, oh, like every time I'm in New York City, especially in the summertime, whenever I go to the U.S. Open, and I'm getting on the subway, and I go, man, like I couldn't imagine. Like, obviously, hundreds of thousands of people do it or whatever, but like sitting in a 3-piece suit, getting ready to go to your job, and you're sitting on a hot subway platform in the middle of July. That just sounds like my worst nightmare, to be honest. Not the job, but sitting on a subway platform wearing a suit sounds like my worst nightmare ever, because it is so hot down there on those platforms.
Yeah, there's like a number of diseases that you're hoping you like don't catch. You have to report to your doctor after like every day just to make sure you're still doing healthy, man. I mean,
I will say some of the performers, it was either like a 2 out of 10. It's like, oh my gosh, or there were some really good people singing in the subway. So shout out those people.
Shout out. Carter, I don't know if I wanted to, but I was thinking about doing our own little award show. But as I thought about it, man, it just would be too easy. Like all these
Yeah.
guys were so fit in their role so well. MVP is going to be Richie Saunders, right? If you wanted to do a defensive player of the year, it'd be Mawut Mag. You're right. If you wanted to do most improved, you could say Richie Saunders. You could say Trey Stewart, right? It just seemed like all these guys fit into their things so greatly. But to my point, that is what made this team so good. They all played their roles in such a specific and beautiful way and meshed together. So if you had anyone else that you thought deserved some sort of church ball award, now'd be the time to let it rip.
What we just need to have an award for Keba Keita, whatever that award name is. He deserves something because he was unbelievable this year. And yeah, like you said, everybody played their role so well. Like it's tough to put these guys in certain camps and everything. Like everybody did their job so well. It's just an unbelievable season. I think you nailed it, Chase.
Yeah, I would go so far to say if MVP was voting, Richie Saunders is 1. I might mess around and put Keba Keita at 2. I think what he did for this team was just so valuable and important. And then Egor Demin 3. Like that's how I saw this team in the season.
I think so too, especially down the stretch during that 9-game win streak, how important Keba was during that time. Now, if you go into the tournament, I feel like Egor I don't think people realize how good of a tournament he had.
He was great. And you saw it on Twitter. I think draft people are all the way back all over him. There was that week early in non-con where it seemed like every tweet you saw was about Egor Demin.
Yep.
And then it's really cooled down, and obviously he started to slide a little bit. I think he's right back up, and he's kind of solidified himself as a first half of the first rounder, just fringe lottery. I think that's where he's going to be sliding into perfectly.
Yeah, I think he's going to be a top 10 pick, Chase. I've been texting with some draft people, and that tournament did a lot for them, especially because the number one thing everyone worried about was the scoring. Because, people will talk about Egor against like a team like Houston or Providence, these physical teams that play defense, they get up in your grill like that. To be honest, the way Houston plays defense, every single one of those dudes would foul out in an NBA game the way they play. It's too physical. That's not how it's going to be played in the NBA. And there's so much more space on the court, and you're playing with better players in the NBA. Like, Egor's game fits so perfectly. I really think he ends up going top 10. I'd be shocked if he fell out of the lottery, to be honest.
That Wisconsin performance from Egor is one that I'll remember for a long time. 11-8-8 against the 3 seed and to go to the Sweet 16 was one. It was, I mean,
only one turnover.
It was so special, man. And like he keeps them in the game there early with those threes, right? And yeah, I'm really happy for him and what he's going to be doing in the NBA, unless he stays, Karter.
Yeah, I saw that stuff, and I know people saw the tweet I put out on the church ball thing and his quote, and everybody else put out the quote and everything. And there's been some rumors going around that he's considering staying, and he's now, it's 50% chance he stays kind of thing and whatnot. I'll be honest, like, I really think it's a lot of these guys in that moment, right after you lose in these moments, it's tough to sit there and go, wait, I have to leave these guys? I have to leave these dudes I've grown to love and all the coaching staff, and I don't want to leave Provo. I've really grown to have a family here and everything like that. Like, I truly love it. And look, I'm not saying, like, look, maybe he really does, and he's like, you know what? The NBA will always be there, and I'm coming back to Provo. But the thing is, I just don't see that happening still. And to be honest, I don't think he should do it. I think he should go to the NBA. I think you go there, develop, and get to that second contract as soon as possible.
Yeah, absolutely agree. After a loss like that, it's easy to be emotional. All you want to do, Karter, is just run it back because you feel like you left something on the table. Like all those guys wanted to do, I think, is like, let's just play that game again because I think we have a better performance than us, whatever. A whole nother season. Like, I just want to get back to this point and make it past. At the end of the day, like you said, it's best for him that he goes. And maybe at his heart of hearts, he really wants to be back at BYU next season. I could see that being true 100%. I think he does genuinely like it here. And I think he does genuinely love these guys and playing for Kevin Young. He's got people in his corner, in his circle, who are going to be advising him that the best move for his career is going to be to go to the NBA right now. maximize his value and his potential. As fun as it would be to see him play alongside AJ DeBounce on this team next season, he's going to the NBA. I'd be shocked.
Yeah, and also like I would even go as far to say is he would rather stay in Provo and play another season at BYU than go to the NBA if it was up to him and the money was equal and you weren't missing out on potentially that second contract a year later and everything. Without those factors, I think he would much rather come back to Provo. I think he truly I know for a fact he truly loves it and everything. But you know who else would love to come back and play another year of college? Cooper Flagg. Zion wanted to play another year at Duke. Like, these dudes love being in college. You know how awesome it is? Could you imagine being one of the number one guys on a big-time college campus, and you're playing Division I basketball? You got a real team around you. Because the NBA, man, I mean, it's kind of lonely for these dudes, and it's a way different lifestyle. And look, it's obviously you're getting all this money and everything, but college is going to be way more fun than the NBA.
Absolutely. I was saying on the live stream, if you missed it, I like college too, man. I didn't want to go. I was like, I'm having a blast, man, just doing classes. And
we don't want to try and get real jobs. Like, screw this.
Exactly. But it's just something you have to do. And obviously our situation's different. And in this case, there's opportunity. There's obviously wealth in front of you, which even if you don't care about that, which I don't think he's after money at all, but it's just the best move for your career. I know some people might make the argument maybe he needs another year to develop or something like that. G League is a great place to develop. NBA coaches are really good at developing players and figuring out where they're at. I don't think you benefit a whole lot from spending another year in college when it comes to basketball. And it could be a hot take or whatever, but I think going to the NBA and figuring out that lifestyle as soon as possible. He's still 19 years old, right? Getting in the weight room, doing what these guys need him to do, is to tell him this is what you're going to be doing to get NBA minutes. Just do that as soon as possible. You come here another year, you can do the same thing that you did this year. Maybe you go further in the tournament if that's what you really want. But at the end of the day, for his development, for him being a player and what his goals are to play in the NBA for a long, long time, you just got to go.
Yeah, and I think it just depends on the player where you're slotted in the draft projections of whether coming back to college for a year matters. Like, he's going to be a lottery pick, a top 10 pick. Typically with those guys, very few of them are, let's say you're a 9 through 14 kind of pick. Very few of those guys end up jumping into the top 3 the following year. You usually still hover around that spot or even potentially drop off a little bit. His case could be different. Maybe he comes on, has a great year next year, and it's completely different. But I like, what would be his ceiling next year? Because obviously this is going to be AJ's team next year. AJ and Richie are going to be taking all the shots next year, which would look great for him, facilitating the ball and everything. And Darren Peterson's coming in. He's been unbelievable. You got the Boozer twins coming into Duke. Look, I think Egor's potential, if he stayed another year, would be probably being, at best the 3rd overall pick. Is that really jumping 6 to 7 spots in the NBA draft worth staying a year, risking that? And I know he'd take out a big insurance policy on himself if he came back to college another year, but still, I don't think it's worth taking that risk of potentially moving up to a top 3-4 spot for the following draft.
Yeah, that's like best case scenario. That's if he has like an all-time year in college, like completely ups his game. But like I said, if you really want to develop and become an NBA player, go to the NBA. Go get with those coaches and those development players. So it'll be interesting to see. I would be shocked if he stayed, but I do now recognize, I think it is a legitimate possibility. I think it's out there in the universe that a decision that he needs to make. I just would be surprised if he ended up deciding that he wants to play another year of college basketball at BYU.
100%. Could not agree more. And the last thing I'll say on this is, you keep mentioning how if you want to go to the NBA, then you want to develop in the NBA, go. Get there now as soon as possible and develop there. Because it also helps when a team uses a top 10 pick or a lottery pick on you, they're going to be more patient with you and take that time with you, rather than if you're a 21-year-old, 22-year-old, junior, senior coming out of college and you're a late first round, early second round pick. they're quicker to dump you faster because you're also cheaper. So they have a little bit more investment in you. And so they're going to take the time to really try to develop you if you're a top 10 pick, which I think he will be. So, yeah, I would be surprised if he did. Obviously, we would welcome him back with open arms and be insanely stoked if he came back, because you think about that lineup next year, it would be Egor, Richie, AJ, potentially a transfer guy, and then Kaba at the 5. I mean, that is a national title worthy lineup right there.
100%. I mean, we can only dream, but we can't be selfish either. I really want what's best for Egor. Really great guy, a really great kid, and obviously insanely talented. So, and Karter, like, we've talked to draft guys, and they love this dude. Like, NBA teams are gonna love this kid. Like, they also want him to go to the draft. They'd be disappointed if he didn't. Like, people want this dude on their team.
And he's going to kill it in interviews, man. They're going to see this kid, and they're going to go, he's focused on all the right things. He's got his mind where it needs to be. He's not focused on partying or doing stupid stuff like some young players want to do and everything. It's like what Justin talked about when we interviewed him, where he's like, look, when I ask these guys, that are in the league and stuff, they're going to Miami on an off day. All right, what are you doing? And if a guy says, I'll probably stay back at the hotel, play a little Xbox, chill out a little bit. That's a guy I want. That's a guy I like to see. That's the kind of guy who Egor is. He's focused on all the right things, and he's going to absolutely dominate in the interviews. He's a 6'9" point guard with incredible feel for the game, and his vision is the best in the draft, without question.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, just talking about it makes me excited to see where he goes. I mean, I think there's a lot of teams that he's going to fit with. Being a lottery pick, too, like, he'll get the opportunity to play, I think, right away. He'll get minutes. I guess it depends on exactly where he goes. But
you think he'd get minutes in Charlotte?
I think I could get minutes in Charlotte if I really tried. I think they might give me a workout, honestly, this offseason.
You'd probably have a record on your hands if you.
I'm a little bit too clean to play for that team, I think, is the big problem.
I hate the Charlotte. I hate being a Charlotte Hornets fan. I'm
so
switch.
Done. You can always switch.
Not switching. No, that's another thing I wanted to bring up, Chase.
No, we're not gonna bring it up.
No. We need to bring this up, and we're coming back to this because Chase, how awesome did it feel when BYU beat Wisconsin on Saturday?
It was incredible. And BYU is a team I'll never switch up on. College is a little bit different.
No, it's not.
We're alums.
Okay, I get that, but it's not different. You know why it's awesome is because you've been through so many terrible years of missing the tournament and heartbreaks through the tournament, where seeing them beat Wisconsin to make the Sweet 16, it made it feel all that much better. I almost feel like that Wisconsin win going to the Sweet 16 was almost at the same level as like the Celtics winning the finals.
Not
it was
quite,
close.
But it was up
close.
There. No, it was an incredible moment. Here's the difference, Karter. Here's the difference. BYU always had that potential in them. The Charlotte Hornets will never win an NBA title. That is
you don't know that.
I think
Chase,
I
we got like 60 more years on this earth, man. We're gonna be fine. We're gonna see the Hornets be competitive in the next 60 years at some point.
Competitive, sure, but dude, like it's been this long they haven't won, right? Like,
I mean, we're a new franchise. We're
there's
expansion.
teams in the NFL who haven't even made it to the Super Bowl. Same with NBA that had never made it to the finals. This is, I mean, sometimes it just never happens. It's an old sport, dude.
Yeah,
there's MLB teams. You know how long baseball's been around?
The Hornets aren't an old sport, old team. Especially if you include the expansion Bobcats.
It was more
okay. What are we doing?
It's me trying to be nice.
I love how I do this on every podcast I go on. Every podcast I do, somehow, some way, I have this magical way of bringing up the Charlotte Hornets. It's unbelievable.
It really
is
uncanny. and I've been on multiple, platforms with you, and it finds a way. It sneaks away in
every
the conversation.
Single time. They live rent free in my head somehow. Anyhow, let's get to some other offseason news. Do you want to do transfer portal additions or subtractions first?
Let's start with the subtractions. We'll end with the good stuff.
Okay, let's do it. Let's start off Cannon Catchings. He hits the portal. Look, let's be honest. It wasn't a surprise to anybody. I think the writing was on the wall. Everybody knew it was going to happen. He hits the portal. Best of luck to him. And I will say, for BYU fans, I feel like college sports fans in general are just getting better about, like, when a guy hits the portal, they're not like, what the crap, this is crazy, screw this guy and all this stuff. I feel like most people are like, yeah, man, best of luck, it didn't work out here, but, like, wish you the best in your career and everything. I feel like that's what I've seen for the most part. And so I'm glad, especially BYU fans, are getting mature about that kind of stuff. I'm sure there's a couple bad apples out there, but that's everything.
Yeah, I agree. I think college sports fans as a whole have been good at it, and I think the BYU response that I've seen at least has been good.
Can I ask something real quick before we dive into this?
Yeah.
How should fans feel if they go to a rival? So if, let's say someone from BYU hits the portal, goes to Utah, or how Utah fans should feel about Keba Keita coming to BYU.
It's tough because I know most Utah fans in the moment weren't too upset about it. I don't think Keba had an amazing year for the Utes, and so they were kind of like, oh, like, have him, and maybe BYU fans would feel the same way. Like, what if I don't want to name any names. If someone was there and you're just like, oh, we didn't really want him anyway. Like, but then, if you're Keba, you had an awesome year, you really contributed and had amazing tournament success, the most you've ever seen, then you start to feel pretty bad about it. If it's a good player, like what happened in football between Utah and BYU, I know, this is one fan base was very upset. I think you'd be a little upset. You'd feel a little backstabbed. Like, that's kind of like the biggest no-no. Just don't go there.
Exactly. That's my thing. Is I think it's okay for fans to be pissed off if you go to your team's rival. Like, if a Duke player goes to Carolina or a Carolina player goes to Duke, that's just not cool. Like, you just don't do that. And, well, Aiden Holloway going from Auburn to Alabama, like, I don't care. Like, you went to the rival, you just don't do that.
Yeah, like I said, it's like, go anywhere but there. Like that, we don't, like, we hate those guys. It's like, anyhow, you did too at one point. Anyway.
Yeah. Anyhow, Cannon catching since the portal.
Yeah. Honestly, at the end of the day, it's tough. It didn't work out. Lots of potential there. Obviously, not the way that he wanted the season to go. Neither did we. For him and the potential and the talent that he has and possesses. I honestly think, and I'm happy for him, this was the right move for both Cannon Catchings and BYU. It just didn't mesh, man. Sometimes your style is just not what the coaching staff's looking for in the direction they're moving. And I think it became obvious about 2/3 of the way through the season that it just wasn't the style that was going to fit what BYU was trying to do. And that's okay. That just happens. That's different teams like different players to do different things. And in this case, Cannon Catchings plays a different style. So I think him finding the right home, which it sounds like it's going to be UNC. Again, I don't know for sure. I think it's going to be important for him to fit his style and take his career in the best way. So at the end of the day, mutually a good thing for both parties.
Yeah, like you said, it just didn't fit, and that happens. That's okay and whatnot. And, to be honest, I feel like he needs to go somewhere where he's got a really long leash and can make those mistakes and go through those growing pains and, get through because he was on such a short leash here at BYU because they were so competitive. And BYU, this is the downside of over-recruiting for a team because then you limit, guys like Cannon and their development a little bit sometimes. And so then, it kind of hurt his confidence a little bit. You could see that, especially in the second half of the season. And so I just feel like he needs to go to a place where he has a long leash and he's not going to get yanked if he starts a game 0 for 2, 0 for 3 from 3 and maybe misses a defensive assignment or something like that. I think he needs, a place where he can go through and make mistakes and still stay on the court and really grow as a player. To be honest, I know Carolina is the hot rumor and everything. I don't really see it. I don't see that being a great fit. Not because, I'm not a Carolina fan or anything and I don't like Carolina and whatnot. It's not because of that. I just know how Carolina works and how Carolina operates because, one, look, man, if you were upset with like BYU fans and whatnot, get ready for blue bloods, man. Kansas, Kentucky, Carolina, Duke. These fans are ruthless. And then on top of that, you're on a way bigger stage at a place like Carolina. And the other thing is Hubert Davis, he has a tight leash with some of these guys. It doesn't matter if you're an NBA lottery pick. It doesn't matter if you're an NBA first rounder. If you're not playing well that night, you're playing 10 minutes. He does not care. He will play whatever his seniors and the guys he trusts most. And so I think it's a risky move. He's betting on himself wherever he goes. He might not go to Carolina. Obviously, that's not confirmed and whatnot. I think it would do him a lot better going to one of these lower P5s like a Wake or like a Oklahoma State type deal where he can almost be the guy a little bit, take a lot more shots, grow a lot as a player, and also, develop, get a little stronger in his size, get a little more comfortable handling the ball more in bigger situations and playing in those big time moments. And then I feel like that's how he can grow most as a player. But we'll see. Best of luck to him, and hope it works out for him.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I think he's a great kid, and obviously, spent some time at BYU, and so he'll always have a place on the history books, and was a part of this team. He did amazing things. Think about that Arizona game, that Baylor game, man. I mean, it was special going 8 for 8, and they don't win that game without him. And it was one of the bigger wins of the season, especially at a moment when they really needed it. So always a lot of love for Cannon, and wish him the best of luck. I would not be shocked, if we hear next year, maybe 2 years from now, see him averaging, 17, 18 points and being a really good guy on a really good team. He has that potential. So, hope to see him realize it.
Yeah. Yeah. I would like to see him at like an NC State with Will Wade, to be honest. I think that fits him a little more in the way Will Wade wants to play. I think Carolina's going to be bringing in a ton of guys, and I feel like you might find yourself in the same position you were in at BYU at Carolina as well. And that's what I worry about him for, because I want what's best for him. I want to see him succeed, and I just don't know when you're going to a place like North Carolina, man. They're bringing in the top of the top guys, so you got to elevate yourself. And like I said, best of luck to him. It's not confirmed he's going to Carolina or anything. That's just the hot rumor, and we're just saying that if he goes. So we're not reporting anything or any of that, so don't aggregate that too much. But that's just what we're seeing online and everything. And then the other one, Elijah Crawford hits the portal as well. This is just a tough situation for him as well. Another case of, look, there was a little bit of over-recruiting. There just wasn't a spot for him on this team with Down and Egor being in front of him at the point guard spot, him being a young 4-star freshman point guard. I think he's going to be an unbelievable 3-4 year college guy, man. I have really high hopes for Elijah Crawford. I think we're going to be hearing his name for a while in college basketball.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Again, so much talent there. It shows where BYU's at, and it's not a detriment to Elijah Crawford at all, because he's a great player. But BYU's just getting a little more picky. They had him for a year. They got to see him in practice. They got to see him with the rest of the team, and they got to see what they liked about him. Maybe what they didn't like. I don't know. I wasn't in those practices. I don't sit in coaches' meetings. But I don't think he hits the portal that quickly unless he has an idea of what his role would be next season, and it doesn't seem like it would have been a big one. And to his credit, and to what he should be doing, is going to find a place where he can play a big role and get on the court. Like, that's what these guys want to do. That's what's good about the transfer portal, is that, look, if you're not getting the minutes at this place, find your minutes, right? And go play your game. So I hope he also lands at a great place, a place where he can showcase his talent, because he's got a lot of it. But I also just think it shows what BYU is doing. They're going after point guards. They have maybe a specific style that they're looking for, a specific skill set. And I guess Elijah Crawford wasn't it. Or maybe it was just him. I don't know. I'm not in the meetings. I have no inside info.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're a low P5 team like we talked about, some of these schools, he would be a great addition. I really think, next year's going to be a development year for him. I think he gets his feet wet a little bit more, as long as he gets to showcase his skills and gets to, I think he needs to go somewhere where he can start right away. I think his junior, senior year could be really special for him, and he can make a real impact wherever he goes in college basketball. He's so athletic. He's so bouncy. I think he's designed very well to be successful in college basketball. But like you said, it just wasn't going to work out at BYU. They've just got so many guys coming in. It's going to be tough. I think he saw the writing was on the wall. It's like, hey, this is probably going to be my role next year. Once again, I got to go where I'm going to get time, and that's just what it is now.
It is, and he's a great guy, and obviously was very animated on the bench. You can tell everyone on the team loves him. He loves everyone on the team. Just a great bench energy guy. So he will be missed in that way. And I also think he has talent. Again, it's just showing what BYU is doing. I think fans should get really used to this kind of action in the portal. Again, like basketball, they've seen it before. Every year, at least 5 guys are hitting the portal. And so, and for this season, we'll talk about it a little bit later, but this is just the beginning. These two guys in the portal, I think BYU might see even more than normal over the next few years as they start to filter in and out who they like, the style that they're going for, who's going to fit around the centerpieces that they're recruiting. In this case, next season, it's going to be AJ DeBonsta. And then Richie Saunders, if he comes back, right, which I'm pretty sure he is. Again, I don't have any inside info. So if I'm a BYU fan, I'm going to get used to these one and done guys that maybe you fell in love with, right? You see the recruiting rating, you see the potential there, but got to learn to let go. And don't worry, BYU is going to be grabbing guys in the portal here that they feel like may just fit their system a little bit better. So this is going to be the new normal. Like you're gonna see a lot of one and done dudes, freshmen coming in and then bouncing out. Even guys who come transfer in, spend 1 year, decide this isn't it for me, don't get the playing time that they want, bounce out as well. So just beginning. Unfortunately to see guys leave, but fortunately for BYU to grab some dudes.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the other thing. There's going to be more people announcing they're hitting the portal and whatnot and everything. And I think it's just a thing of, okay, there's no need to freak out about this stuff because, look, BYU knows, like, it's not all, if someone announces they're hitting the portal, it's not going to be a shock to this team or this program or anything, most likely. They're going to be prepared for it. They know what's going on. They have guys they're already targeting, already recruiting, already talking to. If you see any tweet from 24/7 Sports or whoever one of these recruiting outlets are, every single tweet is BYU has been in talks with this guy. BYU has been in talks with this guy. BYU is on every single list of these dudes. And it just shows where, like you said, where BYU's at right now. And so there's going to be a lot of movement. And my thing is, Chase, I'm curious to see how they recruit this year because clearly last year they went for a lot of dudes, and Kevin Young talked about it. It was one of his biggest headaches where it's like, look, man, we almost have too many guys on this team, and I want to play all of them, and I want to balance it out and everything. But at the same time, you do want all those guys. I'm curious to see how they recruit, whether they go a little bit less this year or they have the same mindset of let's just bring all these dudes in and make it work. But I almost feel like that's a little bit of a dangerous strategy going forward because you have one bad apple in that mix. It can really mess up things going forward for a season.
Yeah, absolutely. I believe, when we interviewed Eric Mika, he talked about that. I think that's what was special about this season is people were bought in, even when they diminished roles, even when they didn't get the minutes that they want. I would guess, Carter, and this is, again, just a guess, I think BYU probably stays with the strategy. They saw the success that this year had, and the fact that they could turn to 11 guys in a game was actually a really big asset for them and ended up being a big reason that they had the success that they did. So I wouldn't be shocked if they kept going and just adding as much talent as possible, then figure it out later. It is a good problem to have at the end of the day.
For sure.
Like you almost feel like you can never have too much talent, but it does make sense though to feel like you have the right balance. Because at the end of the day, and we've said this, the 11-man rotation is really cool, and it worked out this year. The elite teams have 7, 8 on a night when you really need it. It's just the way basketball works, and so I would expect with BYU's trajectory, the guys that they're getting, right, they're trending towards more of that power level of college basketball to see that style happen more often.
Yeah, it is interesting though because you watch a team like Duke this year. I mean, they're going 9-10 deep, and it's so hard because in an era of NIL and everything, like having all these dudes bought in during a season, especially when things go south for a minute. Obviously, things didn't really go south for Duke at any point, but it did for BYU, and it was a testament to Kevin Young and his coaching staff keeping these dudes bought in, especially with a lot of them not playing a ton of minutes. But I worry about that going forward because, like, let's say there's a little downward period. How do these dudes react? Can you continue to keep these guys bought in when you're bringing in different cats every single year? Maybe this year was a little bit of an anomaly when you have guys like Trey Stewart, Trevin Nell, who are more so willing to buy into those roles more. It's tough to tell a guy that, hey, you were the guy at so-and-so state university, whatever, but when you come here, you got to be the 9th guy off the bench, even though you're a junior, senior.
No, that's exactly right. That is tough. And I'm glad I don't have to figure it out because, man, college basketball coaches, it's a grind, dude. I mean, you're recruiting 24/7, 365 days a year just to keep your own players on the team. much less figuring out how to bring in new talent. And that's the other thing that I think BYU might run into is bringing in a new team and new players is always great with the talent that they're going to be acquiring and the resources they have. But it's important to have veterans, constant dudes that have been there for years. BYU obviously had it this year with guys like Richie Saunders-Dallin, Foose, Trevin Nell, Trey Stewart, because they had been there and developed. You know, as the seasons go by, who is going to be here as a freshman and maybe spend 2 or 3 years at BYU? It's becoming a very rare thing across all of college basketball, to be completely honest. And maybe it's not a huge necessity now. Maybe the game really is changing. But it feels like for BYU, it would be weird, right? Because the nature of the university, the way basketball's been going, to have a team where you're like, none of these guys were on the team 2 years ago, and it's just all completely different. And then that brings its own challenges with throwing together a team in what feels like a few short months to all of a sudden be competitive in a college basketball season when they really haven't played together and all that stuff. So that opens a whole can of worms. But at the end of the day, like we talked about, they're recruiting 365 days a year. Your season ends, and 2 days later, guess what, Carter? You get your first portal edition.
They did. They got their first portal edition from Washington, international player. He didn't play at Washington at all. Dominic Diamande. I hope I said that right. I watched a bunch of interviews and stuff. That was the consensus. That was the average of how people pronounced it and everything. Chase, to watch film on this guy, I was like, all right, I need to be prepared. I need to lock in. I really, really try to refrain from just watching these highlight mixtapes, because if you watch this dude's highlight mixtapes, you're like, oh, sweet, BYU just got Jason Tatum. Sick, let's go. Like, they got him. You know, no big deal. Like, okay, you need to watch a full game. So, Chase, I was on some random European website that I'm pretty sure my computer has a virus on now, trying to watch this dude's full game from a team I couldn't even pronounce. But I was watching him, and I liked what I saw. Like, I really did. I think he's going to be an instant contributor on this team. He's got great size, and his motor is what really stuck out to me watching, especially the full game footage, where he's moving a lot off the ball, and his defense, he's bringing that defensive intensity. And this shows that BYU is really saying, hey, we are making sure we are a massive team next year. We are making sure that our length is going to be a huge issue for any matchup we face next season in college basketball. Doesn't matter if we're playing the Duke Carolinas of the world or we're playing the bottom of the Big 12. It does not matter. They are making sure they are going for length right now, and that is a key. And they're also trying to figure out, okay, how do we replace guys like Moet Mag? That's tough, and I feel like this is more of the Moet Mag replacement, but he brings more of an offensive game from what I was able to watch on film, and I think he could be a great addition. I don't want to go on here and say, oh, he's going to be this great player, you know, do this, do that, NBA pick and all this stuff. I don't know that, but from what I watch on the film, really encouraging stuff, and it's really exciting.
Yeah, I mean, the film that there's the film that we've watched, that because this is our responsibility to dive into it, right? And then there's the film that everyone's seen on Twitter. And the Twitter stuff's real exciting, man. It's like
the Twitter stuff. You're saying it's Jason Tatum.
It's only dunks and 3-pointers. That is it. And it's like, is this all this guy does? And that's not the whole truth, exactly. But those are exciting things, and it just shows what you can gather from that, at least the athleticism, the motor, the confidence he has. I mean, the threes he's taken are like step back Jays in the corner, dude. Like, I don't know if that's exactly what he's going to be doing when he comes to BYU. Obviously, it's going to be a different style of basketball and all that. But it's always good. Like, you can never have enough long wings who can shoot and are athletic. I mean, it's a carbon copy of what NBA teams are looking for all the time. And BYU has never really been in a position where they've just been like, oh yeah, we'll grab your 6'8" guy from France who can jump out of the gym and knock down threes. Sure. So this is new territory for BYU, and obviously a huge get. Just as far as athleticism goes, and maybe the style of this team going forward. Again, with how much talent's going to be on this team next year, Carter, we might see, Dominic play a subdued role, like we've seen some guys who we maybe thought would be big contributors this season, or he could end up like Moet Mag, where we had no expectations for him even 2 months into the season, and all of a sudden he's a starter and one of the most important players on the team in what he does. So that's all up in the air. But from what I've seen, pretty much repeating all that you just said, a 3-point shot that at least has the confidence. We'll see if it translates. The mechanics look good to me. And then a motor and a drive and the athleticism that BYU does not see very often, but is going to become the new normal. I would love to see a little bit more defensive, focus from him. I haven't watched too much, but if you're going to replace Moet Mag, it's going to take a pretty special defensive effort to do it with the level at which he was defending. I don't know if you can find a Moet Mag, honestly, but he does offer more for you offensively on that end. And BYU still is going to have elite shot blocking bigs. This time on 2 deep, right? With Staten and Keita. So the defense might be a little different next year in their philosophy there. But at the end of the day, it's exciting to see them get guys like this again from Washington, who Washington was really high on. He ended up redshirting, didn't play a single minute for the Huskies. They obviously had a rough year. But it also shows that BYU might become one of these sneaky international teams that is able to grab these guys from overseas, develop them. Obviously, Egor Demin's the one that we point at, but also guys like Boskovic, right, coming from overseas and taking a chance at BYU. We have other, NBA Africa Academy guys who are coming over and playing now, and now, Diamande from France.
Exactly. I think that's a huge point to touch on as well, is the continuing BYU's Euro to the NBA pipeline is going to be critical for recruiting going forward and building out this team year to year. As okay, you always want to have your hands in Europe and see what's going on and be a destination for these guys overseas, because especially, some of these dudes are just so much untapped potential over there. And I don't even think a lot of these schools realized Egor Demin was willing to go play college basketball, and BYU got in early, and they got the recruitment in, and there's people behind the scenes making it happen and all that. And yeah, I think that's a huge point to touch on as well. The other thing is, you talk about the length and athleticism and everything. BYU, man, just think about the defense next year and the lineups they can throw out. Like, we talked about it this year, but then you combine the potential athleticism, especially when you talk about a guy like AJ DeBanza coming in, Keba Keita playing alongside him. I mean, even Richie's not a short guy on the court, and he's a freaking Energizer Bunny hustle guy and whatnot. It's just so exciting what they're going to be able to put on the basketball court. And then on top of that, they're not done in the portal by any means. There's going to be 2-3 more guys that are coming in the portal. And I expect them especially to go get a shifty, dynamic guard coming in this year as well.
Yeah, I think that's next on the list. I don't know if that's exactly next who they will get, but I think we can say pretty confidently with the people we've talked to, that is the number one priority for BYU right now. Obviously, getting long and length at the wings. I think they've already done that, and they're already in the mix for some guys that fit that description. You need a point guard now. You've got to find a way to find that for the team next season. Obviously, the biggest one is Georgia. The Georgia transfer, Silas Damari Jr. That's the one that we've seen smoke for, at least right now, and it's still early in the portal process.
Yeah, and he's going to all the big dogs. He's visiting UConn. He's visiting Duke. He's visiting BYU and all that good stuff. So we'll see what happens there. There's no point in – I mean, there's going to be so many more guys that enter the portal over the next – just by the time that we're recording Monday night, this will be out Tuesday morning, there's going to be 4 more important guards that probably hit the portal by the time this podcast even comes out. And BYU's going to be reaching out to all 4 of those guys or whatever. So there's so much more to work with here, and it's tough to break down, okay, who do we think BYU will get? Obviously, they're in for Damari from Georgia and whatnot, but we'll see. But like you said, getting that shifty, dynamic guard is priority number 1 right now, assuming that Egor goes to the NBA. If Egor doesn't go, then you got a different problem on your hands, and a good problem at that point. But then all of a sudden, you probably have the tallest lineup in college basketball history at that point.
Yeah, I mean, if you could find someone at Egor's size, which actually I don't think they exist, being able to play point guard at his size.
No.
So never mind. But if you can find a guy like 6'5", 6'6", to play that position, you're talking about one of the longest teams in college basketball. So it's going to be exciting. At the end of the day, I feel very confident in Kevin Young, in Justin Young as the head of recruiting here, and in BYU's deep pockets. I am confident in those alumni and some of those boosters and what they're willing to throw at some players. So I wish we had a little bit more info for you guys, any sort of inside scoops, but we're kind of just going off of what you guys are going off as far as guys coming in. We may have a little info on internally BYU that we're not exactly sharing or is exactly important, but it's going to be exciting to see over the next couple of weeks who's coming in.
Trying to get out of there politically, Chase. I see you there.
No, wait.
Yeah, you're sitting there like, yeah, I got a little info, something going on inside of BYU. Yeah, everyone's going to hear that and be like, oh, what does Chase know? I mean, obviously, I know you know, but it is
okay. Now this guy, he's like,
I know, just correct me. I love when one of us gets political on here because the other one sees right through it.
I just didn't. I was.
Yeah, I know.
Because the point was, we don't know a whole lot, but don't sleep on us. We also know some things. That's why I just wanted everyone to know that. But it's going to be exciting to see. I expect BYU to be in on some big names here, man. And who enters the portal is still yet to be seen, and it's going to be exciting. Like they're going to be on a lot of big guys.
Can I be honest? This might sound like a dumb take, but I think whatever big-time guard they throw all their resources at, which it seems like they're going to go big for one specific guard in the portal potentially, and that's going to be one of their main starters at the 1 or 2 next season, depending on how things shake out. Whoever that is going to be the most important piece they bring in the offseason because guard play wins in March. We all know that. You look at March Madness right now. You look at who's in the Final Four. You look at Houston, Uzan at Houston, Cryer, Sharp, those 3 guys right there. You look at Duke, even Proctor, Sion James. You look at Florida, Elijah Martin, Walter Clayton, who's been the best guard in this tournament. You look at Auburn. Auburn has Janai Broome. Great. But Auburn's ceiling is solely dependent on guys like Tahad Pettiford. And so guard play wins in March. That is the most important thing. We saw it even in the Alabama game, what Mark Sears and Aiden Holloway did to BYU. So bringing in the right guard for your system and bringing in someone who can score and also facilitate is so critical to your team's success because Chase, I don't know if you remember, think about Auburn 3 years ago when Walker Kessler and I'm blanking. So Jabari Smith. Yeah, when Walker Kessler and Jabari Smith are there and that team craps out in the tournament in the second round because their guards were taking a bunch of dumb shots and their guards weren't getting their best players involved in everything. So those pieces are going to be absolutely critical this offseason. However it shakes out with BYU's guards, they have to have the right guys in there who are willing to be unselfish and make the guys like AJ and Richie shine in the biggest moments because guard play does determine this game.
Yeah, 100%. And I think you touched on the big point there. Unselfish, being someone who, honestly, your offense is kind of good if you're BYU, right?
Yep.
You have AJ DeBonsa, Richie Saunders, who's turned into one of the more formidable scorers in the Big 12. You're going to be sitting pretty when you need a shot at the end of the game, right? But you are going to need a guy who can control the pace, control the ball, find the right shooters, and then as a luxury, get his own bucket as well, right? Be a little shifty, be able to work defenders to get in the right spot, get fouled, and be a little savvy. So I expect them to go after someone experienced. It's going to be interesting to see, how deep they go at that position because with Elijah gone, who knows what's going to happen with Dallin Hall? They might need to double dip in the portal a little bit at that position.
Yeah, for sure. Anything else before we wrap up?
No.
All right. I love it. We'll get into more. We have so much time to talk about portal stuff, but it's been forever since we talked to you guys on the podcast. And it's only been, 3-4 days? And it's felt like like I said at the beginning of this show, 10, 15 years. It's felt like forever. So this felt good to do, Chase. It felt good to be back running the sticks again.
It was very good. It's like riding a bike, even though it's been 4 days. I am gonna miss. I don't know if we're gonna have an excuse to go live, unless we find one. Unless we find an excuse.
No, I do. I will miss going live. Maybe Maybe there's like a huge announcement or something like Cooper Flag transfers. I'm kidding. Don't be. We're not stupid here. Yeah, I don't think there's going to be a reason for us to go live, but I'm excited. I can't wait. We're going to plan on doing a ton of interviews this off season and getting a lot of fun content for you guys. And we're going to break down all these portal guys. And on our next episode, I think we're going to break down a lot of these potential portal candidates that BYU's looking at and the ones that they're more seriously looking at, and dive into what they can do and how they can impact this BYU team going forward and everything. And so make sure to follow at Churchball Pod for up to date on everything, and make sure to subscribe wherever you're listening at Chase_Rogers0, at Carter B8, and at Churchball Pod on everything once again. And if anybody and any BYU, excuse me, I'm dying here. Any BYU fans in San Antonio this weekend, make sure to hit me up. I'll be down there. So and hopefully maybe we can. I know there's going to be some BYU folks down there, coaches and stuff, with the clinics they have going on. So maybe we'll try and swing an interview while I'm down there. We'll keep you posted on that and everything. But